I wanted to talk to you and introduce you to a new AI friend I made named Claude. He's actually started by a company sponsored and created him called Anthropic. Google is a big investor in Anthropic. So Google, unlike Microsoft, who invested in OpenAI came out with their own product. Google's been invested in Anthropic, but they never really launched a generative AI tool, Claude. But Claude is actually used in several applications as a back-end AI tool. Because if you're a software company like Travelocity or somebody like that, you want to incorporate AI into your technology, it's pretty expensive and involved and takes a lot of resources to go out and invent an AI model. So Claude is part of Anthropic. There's the Anthropic logo in the upper left. I have an account with them, and I was trying a few things today. One of the things that I discovered Anthropic can do that ChatGPT said, sorry, we can't do it, is Anthropic lets you upload files in the chat. So one of the classes I do is a class on live, work, and retire abroad affordably. Fred's participated in them, and he's a great contributor. And so I took a PDF file, live, work, retire abroad, and I uploaded it to Anthropic, Claude. You can see here it says message Claude at the bottom, and it has a attachment. You can attach files. It accepts PDF, text, plain text, and CSV for those of you that love spreadsheets. Okay, because I know there's a few people on the call that love spreadsheets, right? Okay, so it'll accept a PDF, TXT file, CSV, and it says etc. I don't know what other formats it does, but it's limited to 10 megabytes each. Okay, so
that's a big text file, 10 megabytes.
Yeah, that's a big text file. It is huge. Okay, so I took this 3.25 megabyte file, live, work, retire abroad. I use it as a handout for the class that I teach, and has a lot of links in it to pages. And so I said, can you summarize the main topics in this document? Okay, I have to write class descriptions. I have to give people a summary. So it took a summary of the main topics in live, work, retire abroad and summarized them as bullet points, okay, and prepared them. Now, I thought that was pretty cool. And I said, what would be really cool is I interject URLs throughout the document. And if you want to see the document, I'm happy to share it with you. But it's a PDF handout. It's about 40 pages. But I intersperse a lot of URLs in the document that are links to resources, because that's one of the reasons people take the class is they're thinking about it, they've read about it, they're not sure about it, and they say, I'd really like to get a head start on it. And that saves people time if they're curious about it. So I said, hey, can you find the website URLs in the document and make a list of them? I thought that was a pretty interesting, right? Because lots of times we've got things in documents, we'd like it to find it. So I just did this like 10 minutes before the meeting started, and here's what it produced. It said, here are the website URLs mentioned, bobology.com. I'm glad it put that one first. But I got things like the State Department, Integrity Index, Global Economy, Bounce.
A lot of those are kind of self-explanatory in some ways.
They are. But, it's like now if people want, I can say, here's a summary of all the URL resources. And I can also check from an editing standpoint and say, I ought to see if any of these are still accurate or not, or out of date. And these are actually live links in the Claude summary that it pulled out. So I can check and see if these are available, and I can open this link in a new tab and see if it's really going to be valid or not. I can check the accuracy of my links very quickly when I'm editing and proofreading a document. I said, this is fantastic. ChatGPT can't do this. because you
Bob,
can't upload a PDF. Now, I could take the text document up to it, but I thought, gosh, this is great that it can take a PDF and do it.
Bob,
Yes.
one thing you might find interesting, or your students might find interesting as well, they can take that document and they can ask Claude to find the key words in the document and create that in a list. So you can actually have it find the key words and then give you a list of the things to study. And if you want to take it even further, you can tell it that it's the teacher and it has to create an exam with X number of multiple choice questions, X number of fill-ins, and X number of essays. And it'll come up with those as well based on the information in the document.
It's fantastic. So
Yeah.
Claude is very, very similar. It is a large language model generative AI tool. Now, the only thing I can't find is to be able to sign up for an individual user account that gives me priority service or other things like that. I don't know if anyone else has found anything like that with Claude, but so far they are selling their AI to businesses as a back end tool, but they're also making it available now for people to start to use. And it's a separate model, that exists that's separate from Chat GPT.
One thing I discovered about it, and it came up 2 times. I was preparing for my program for last night, and I was using Claude very extensively because I wanted to do some things and try some things out and stuff. And suddenly it came up and it said, "You have used up your limit for the day, and you can start the day again at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something like that, and start all over." And then I wrote to Claude the next day and I said, "Claude, what is my limit?" And it was very abstract. It gave me some kind of, well, it depends on a lot of different things and yada 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 yada. And it says, so there is no set limit. So you could be operating this thing and you have to be careful if you rely on it, especially if you're using it a lot. And by a lot, I mean, a conversation with 30, 40 questions or something like that, or prompts, because it could cut out on you and then you're stuck until the next day. So you have to be a little bit careful about that since there is no definitive numeric limit to what it has.
Right. With AI, certain types of prompts and certain types of requests will require more what are called tokens. AI tools tend to measure their demand for resources in terms of tokens. And it has to do with the prompt and the amount of generative nodes that are being used in the AI model that uses up tokens, and they only allow people to use so many tokens a day. The paid ChatGPT account gives you an increase in the tokens you can use, in addition to setting certain behaviors you'd like to have for its responses in advance, and also to use the plugins and add-ons. Claude is not there yet. We may see that. EG, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
2 questions. First question is, on this list of keywords, could you have written to the prompt, in essence, can say, please find the keywords and then present them to me in alphabetical order? I would think it would be, but I'm just, trying to get, if you have a long list, sometimes it's a lot easier to find what you're looking for. Second question is, you said that it allows you to input a CSV file. And I'm wondering will it analyze that data anyway, or it will just do like if you had a cell that had a HTTP address, that it would pull that out? Is it just going to pull the data out, or will it actually do something with it?
I don't know if it'll extract the data. It might, I don't have a convenient CSV files set up that I think I can use. Let me see if I can find one that
I'm just curious. I've got a project I'm working on as a volunteer
sure,
that
but
requires moving a bunch of data, and I think, well, it'd be great if
you
I
can
could use
ask
Claude
it
to analyze it.
to do
Ask it what it can do with a CSV file, Bob.
I'm sorry?
Why can't you just prompt it and ask it what it'll do with the CSV file?
Why not? Yes, and we'll see. So the way Claude is working, it's not really, I mean, as you discovered, Joe, it's not really there to do things that we can rely on and count on as a productivity tool. But they are selling Claude, and Anthropic is selling services to other software companies. Okay, so they can do analysis and visualization. They can use tools like Python, R, MATLAB. It can be loaded into DataFrame. It can be converted to a database, generating charts, graphs, and visualizations. And machine learning, it can be used to train models, streaming in real-time tools like Apache and other things like that. So sounds like you can do quite a bit with it from CSV files. So we tried uploading, and I don't know what types of files. Okay, what types of files can I upload? I tried doing a PDF of a PowerPoint, but it was too big. It'll understand me here, okay? But what types of files can I upload? Let's see what it says, because I don't know what the limits are in the file types. Go ahead, Carl, while we're waiting for Claude to get back to us.
Yeah, Bob, you remember that the Word on the web could export your Word document and create a PowerPoint?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can ask Claude to take that document that you uploaded to it and ask it if it could do a PowerPoint.
Yeah, we could. Yeah.
It wasn't good. It wasn't that good when I used Web Word.
Well, no, it's not that. Sometimes it hits it pretty well, and other times it's way off. The Word on the web to PowerPoint.
You can upload MP4, so you might try that with one of your YouTube videos. See what it does.
Yeah, it can take a lot of different types of files, but there's limit on the file size, so you have to be careful to make sure you don't go over the file size. But it looks like you can take a lot of different types of files. So the file upload is really a nice feature of Claude that is not available in ChatGPT, because I asked ChatGPT and you can't upload any other files to it. Now you can copy and paste into ChatGPT, but you cannot upload. So that's kind of a drawback to it. Okay. Claude, another tool, but like Joe discovered, it may not, you may, hit it too hard some days and use up your token limit without knowing that you've gotten to that point. All right. Interesting tool, lots of variations to try things out. It's, obviously Google's not standing still with AI and doing other things, with Anthropic, and Claude is actually benchmarked very high by AI developers and people that are using AI. Okay, so let's take a look at Adobe Firefly. Has anybody used Adobe Firefly at all? As you know, Adobe is a large graphics company. They make a lot of applications. They make video editing, Photoshop, Illustrator, a lot of things. They're kind of the go-to professional tool, although they do have a steep learning curve because their applications can do so much, it kind of can be overkill for some things. So they have a beta version of Firefly that's out, and I have an Adobe subscription to Lightroom and Photoshop, and so I was able to access Adobe Firefly, and it is a graphics generative AI tool with a little bit of a focus on what designers might want with it. So the Firefly, it's firefly.adobe.com. I don't know if they'll require you to have a paid account. You might be able to join with just a free account with Adobe, but you'd have to set up an account. And it's in beta, but it's really quite elaborate right now. They have a gallery You can save some favorites. They have about, they have help, and you can prompt the AI tool to generate something, but they have some suggestions. Okay.
Can you
They
click on
actually-
gallery so we can see more samples?
Sure, sure. Okay, this is the gallery. And what the gallery is for is to discover prompts with graphics in particular. It's understanding the prompt. And then once you have a kind of a head start on it, then it becomes a little bit easier to modify it for your purposes. Like this is the prompt of a utopian future city with lots of green trees and white buildings and warm sunlight.
Oh, that's really helpful.
This is a prompt of portrait of futuristic Asian man in a beanie hat and glasses, apocalyptic. Okay.
Can you copy the prompt?
Can you copy the prompt? Yeah, you can copy it, Joe. So here's the prompt at the now.
Yeah.
Are they all open, or now are these things done by individuals, or are these items done by Adobe?
Yeah, they're copyrighted by Adobe.
What Adobe says on these is they will say that they're, information. They are not. They are including the fact that it was generated with AI in the metadata of the image. So some of these are developed by people that created them, that wanted to share them with Adobe. Others are things that Adobe had their staff and contractors develop, but they're all available. So you can take this as a starting point, and you can say, okay, put in a subway background. Okay.
Yeah. Why I'm asking is because, like in Night Cafe, people can hide their prompts. So if somebody looks at the information about the image, they might find out, who created it and things like that and what the title is, but they can't see the prompt.
Because artists are trying to protect their property.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah.
Well, this is Adobe's tool. We're just looking at the gallery, which is really designed to help you open up to ideas of how to use it as much as anything. And so the gallery is available for people to access and use to try out text to image. And you can view samples. So they're right now, these are now Adobe's attribution will say that any image you generate in Adobe Firefly was generated by AI. Okay, so but it does help creators create things, and they can then take that image and modify it if they want to.
So I know you can have, Adobe's a big company. You can have an Adobe account, which allows you to use some of their PDF stuff and all that, but is this only available if you're a big software user, like one of their big pro packages?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've got a $9.95 a month, Adobe photography account. But I think you can even get into this for free, Fred. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard to find out. You just
Right. What they are starting to do is Firefly is their AI tool for graphics, and they are starting to incorporate Firefly into their other tools. Like the text to image, obviously, is a classic use of generative AI, but they're using generative fill for Photoshop and other applications. So you can upload an image and remove objects or paste them in if you want to. So if you wanted to modify an object, you can actually view a sample of this, and you can click and drag to make a selection, and then you can remove it you can add something or you can subtract it. So if I want to subtract this, obviously it's a removal tool. So let's see if I'm doing it right. And I click on remove. There we go. It's obviously going to remove it very quickly. Okay. Removals, pretty useful for it to be able to make it work. But you can also add things. You can add things to it as well. So if you wanted to insert something, like I want to insert a shark, what would you like to save? Yeah, we'll save it. What the heck? Okay, so I want to insert something here in this area. I can change it and I can modify it. I think I can say shark or something like that. So I've seen it done on Adobe's website, their YouTube channels, but I haven't actually practiced it very much. But it is possible to insert AI generated tools into an image. They do give you the ability to share it, and download it, and use it if you want to in a variety of ways. So this generative fill gives you the ability to take an existing image and modify it with a tool, anything you might want to have it filled with in any way. One of the toys that's starting to show up in Photoshop when you use Photoshop. I kind of like the text, effects here. They're pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's nice.
That you
Yeah,
can
those
get.
things are impossible to draw.
Right. So I can enter the text. So if I wanted to say Bob, okay, describe the effect, give it a whimsical, I don't know if that's the right way to spell it. Whimsical, okay. A garden look, okay. I have no idea what this is going to turn out, but let's see what it does. So it's taking it, it's going to give it a whimsical garden look, I think, if I spelled it right. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Is, I can see different variations on it if I want to. So it'll generate different variations, and I can choose it to be different sample prompts. So they have sample prompts here. So if I want it to be an icicle, I could change it to an icicle look, and it'll generate an icicle look here just by going icicle.
So I have a question. If you save one of these files, what format where do you save and in what formats?
Well, the text effects are something that is just being started out. So you have the ability to look at options here. If you want to download it or copy, you can choose to submit it to the Firefly gallery, or you can import it into Adobe Express and edit it in Adobe Express. Obviously, Adobe, like Microsoft with their AI tools, and Google, they're making it connected and
I'm sure
connected.
it's probably in one of Adobe's formats. They already have the format. Probably.
Yeah. So I don't know how it will download it, but it'll say download, and it applies content credentials. So it's downloading it as a PNG.
You can tell that by the background on there. That's a ping file.
Yeah, because it's transparent. Yep. So
Hey, Bob, real quick question. So I worked with Adobe a lot when I was in marketing and advertising, and it needed a lot of memory to do the kind of things that you want to do. Is this a memory hog as well, do you think, or what kind of resources is it taking?
this is all being done on their systems on the web.
Yeah, it's running on a browser, running in a
It's
browser.
running in a browser. I'm not using any of my own computing resources other than the web browser here.
That's great.
If you scroll down on the right sidebar, you do have the option of changing the background color from a ping.
Right. You can change it from a transparent if you want to do it differently, if you're interested. And you can do things with the prompt like too. So add more snow. Okay. I have no idea, but it's gonna take it. It's generative text that gives you a tremendous amount of leeway with text effects. Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's too cool.
Yeah. So there's other options for modifying how it creates things in between. And then there's ways to give it a different shape if you want to try different prompts if you're curious about it, and also change fonts, obviously, in different font styles if you want to go that way too. Their galleries are great ideas, so that if you're just saying, gee, I'd like to get an idea of what I can do, and you can see this is just what they say, it's just rubber balls, right, is how they did it. Okay. And so that's all they're asking you to type in for a prompt with their text effects that they're trying to accomplish here. So it's kind of amazing what they're actually getting done with being able. Obviously, Adobe is focused on graphic artists that are using things in productions, and other areas that they want to focus on for that.
Do you
The
have
speed
any
look-
control over the font that they use for these? Looks like you have some that have serifs and some that are sans serif from the ones that you showed from the gallery.
You
Here's
would
the
think a
font.
lot, since how they're a font company in many
Oh, there you go.
ways.
Yeah, there you go, Cooper. All right, good. Thank
So
you.
they have some in different languages, not all of them, but they do have some selection. It's not as extensive, that we might want yet, but it's getting close to it. So you can see the graphic effects are just pretty amazing. So I kind of like that result. I'll give them some.
The generative speed is amazing.
It is,
Yeah.
isn't it? How fast it goes? Yeah. So it's just kind of amazing. Obviously, Adobe is doing some things here. So we've looked at text to image, generative fill, text effects. They're doing some things like recoloring, changing vector artwork. If you know that images, they're either in pixels or vectors. Vectors are, line drawings that have information about spaces, whereas pixel art has each individual picture filled in. So vector artwork is used a lot for print publication, what are called SVG files. And you can see vectors have their own, look to them that you might want to see. As they come out with new features, they're coming out with different diagrams, different prompts. These are great for doing graphics that are resizable. Vectors can be resized without
Losing resolution.
Yeah, without losing resolution or affecting the quality of it. So if I want to give it a terracotta, I can change colors. So they have different, prompts that you can use to generate. What it'll do on the right-hand side is it'll insert the prompt here and then create a generative recoloring of this to randomize the colors if you're trying to do certain things. And so you can take default, they have different color schemes. So if you're looking at a triad color, you can try a triad. You can see the style has gotten, template entered here in the prompt to create kind of a triad of colors that are on the color wheel in certain ways too. Now they're starting to come up with other tools like a sketch to image. They will say in exploration. So that they don't have out yet for Firefly. And then they're also doing 3D to image to take a 3D scene and use a text prompt to create an image. So if you had a photo or a quick illustration, now what a lot of people will use these tools for is mock-ups with graphic design and artists and video and gaming. The imagery is really great to use, but rather than an artist going through a lot of work to create an original design for a client on spec, they can use these Firefly tools to create images on spec, show them to a client and say, which do you prefer, A, B, C, or D, and give them 4 choices. And they haven't spent a lot of time as an artist or a designer creating a lot of custom work on their own and using their time to do that. So it's giving people a lot of tools. Now, these are prompts from their galleries, so you can see the prompts that they've used to create these samples of what they're doing. They can give you hyper-realistic portraits with high resolution. So you can see these are, made up people, right? These aren't real. These are people that were made, faces that were made by AI that are accessible to us with these tools. Yeah, Carl, go ahead.
So years ago, I had a Windows phone. I think you did too, Bob, maybe a few of us. So I had a Windows phone, and the greatest thing about that Windows phone was, for me, I used to take a photo of my family, photos of my family, and I had them converted into a pencil sketch. And that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Photo to pencil sketch. I never saw anything so beautiful, and that was 10 years ago. You can do that here easily, correct?
Yeah.
I have a question. How about starting with an existing image of maybe you created it or some whatever. You got an image from someplace else, and then you want to modify that image. How does that work? Do you know?
In the text to image, I don't know how that would actually work, but there are tools in Photoshop where you can upload an image and import an image into Photoshop and use its AI tools that they have so far to generate variations and modifications of that image if you want
Okay.
to. So that's where Photoshop Firefly is a standalone website right now. That's not an app that you can download as part of the Adobe suite, but I think is what they're telling me and what I've done from watching their updates is that they're introducing it into things like Illustrator, Express, Photoshop, and other tools. So you'll see Firefly functionality incorporated into them.
Joe, is this going to kill Night Cafe?
I don't know. It's just one more tool. There's it's just like saying, will Claude kill ChatGPT? You don't know what's going to happen.
From
You
what
don't
you
know what's
saw,
going to
from
play
what
out.
you
You don't
saw.
know who's gonna
Yeah.
continue to do it.
Exactly. The market drives that.
I saw an interview last night on TV with the president and CEO of Salesforce.com, who's having their big conference in San Francisco this week with 40,000 people there. And he was being interviewed and was talking about AI. And he said the thing that everyone forgets about AI is an infant. We don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years or 20
Exactly.
years.
Yeah.
And it's just in its very early development. It's not walking yet or talking yet, but it will. And it's going to do amazing things. And this is some of the kind of amazing things. And with anything, the market will shake it out. Adobe has tended over time to be hard and complicated to use, whereas I think Night Cafe has been easy to use. So I think there'll be two types of customers: those that don't want to take the time to learn Adobe or have the resources to do it, and those that can use Night Cafe. And I don't think it's bad for either one.
Imagine in the future you have a screenplay and you submit it and then it turns it into a movie.
Now,
That's
these,
That's
what
within the
Hollywood
realm of
strikes about.
possibility.
There is a program that will do that. They'll give you like 10 or 15-second videos if you give it the prompt. I don't know the URL on it offhand. I looked at it and I wasn't real impressed with the output. I mean, I was impressed that it was able to do what it did, but I wasn't impressed with the quality and nature of it, so I kind of let it.
Yeah, we're talking about sometime down the road.
Yeah, but it's out there. They're working on it.
I'm
They're
sure.
working on it.
so these are where they're going in what they call an exploration, which means you can't get to it yet, but it's going to be there. So you can generate images based on your own object or style. So if you want to upload an image and have it generate a line drawing from it, that's going to be possible. You can generate editable vectors. They're doing that. You can go from a text to pattern. Adobe's used a lot for patterns like fabrics and wallpaper and designs and other things like that. You can go with a text to brush. You can generate brushes from that you might want to. You can extend your image if you need to extend part of it, like a tablecloth or a table setting. And then text to template, create templates that you can use. Now, I mean, it's not as though Adobe is the only one doing this. I mean, you would expect them to do it because they're so well known in the graphics, image creation, content tools. But there are some other tools that are intentionally designing themselves to be simpler to use, like Canva has a suite of generative AI tools in their application that are designed for people to do things as well. But some of the stuff that's being done in Adobe is just amazing, in terms of the quality of the work that you would expect. And so they're used obviously in by professional artists. They're used in the motion picture. They're used in gaming industry. So the top designers and top artists are typically using Adobe, but it is their applications do have a learning curve. They're trying to make a simpler version with their Adobe Express application. And there are some things that are actually available for free on mobile that you can do that you might be interested in doing. So Giant Octopus invades New York City. So their text to image options are just amazing what they can do. I love this little house You can say a fairy house in the woods, and we can make it at night. And just by adding a prompt, create an entirely different look to it, and change, instead of making it out of wood, make it out of things. So it comes up with a nighttime view of this fairy
Wow.
house for us. And so it's just amazing what it's capable of doing. Okay, so then I can say with a unicorn, because the young girls seem to like unicorns, as my granddaughter tells me in front. Okay, and we'll see what happens. And it's really coming up with a lot of capabilities here that are creating some different things. Okay, so it kind of put the unicorn in an odd place here. This one's not too bad. I don't see where the unicorn is here, so this one is unicorn. So this is probably the best one of the bunch. There's a unicorn on the top of the house here, but that's not a bad graphic for not being a graphic designer. All I have to do is type in a phrase, and I get a graphic that would have taken me, that would be impossible for me to ever do, because I just don't have that ability to do it. So it's an interesting tool. It's generating these amazing types of results of imagery and photo likenesses and profiles of people. And you can just explore the gallery. It's just amazing. I love the zebra, is so realistic looking. You can put it in a chair. You can, put a head coming out, kind of some odd things that they end up with. A formal background, cats on a street. There's one of my better unicorns that I like. A unicorn in a magical grove, extremely detailed. Okay, so instead of a magical grove, we can say a forest, for example, and see what it'll come up with. So a lot of it's just a matter of your imagination in terms of doing things. So there we have now a unicorn. That unicorn, we started with that in a forest. And you can change the ratios. Obviously, they have different aspect ratios, because between videos, YouTube videos, slide presentations, Instagram, TikTok, other things like that, there's lots of things. I don't know what these styles are going to do, but there are different movements we can pick, different materials that we can pick, different effects. So you can see we can make it into an antique photo, and let's see what it'll look like as well. So it's just, so you can see how the styles are being added as little options here at the bottom. So if you want one or another, you could change it if you're interested in doing it in a different way. You can modify the color and tone, obviously lighting, composition, which are all Adobe resources. So Adobe's still technically got this in beta. Rooms are really hard for generative AI to develop and produce. So I've been very impressed with the quality of architecture and spaces that Adobe has been able to pick out from these types of things and create a realistic. Yeah, Joe.
A question along with rooms, it's also in the past, in my experience with AI image, is it has difficulty with number of limbs and also with hands and fingers and things. How is this at that? I mean, I'm sure the gallery is only going to have good stuff, but how is it at generating extra appendage? I mean, how bad is it at putting in extra appendages and things of that nature, and the hands being all gnarly and bent out of shape and stuff? Because apparently AI has a real difficult time figuring out how hands and fingers work.
Well, let's see. I just asked it to generate an image of a man walking in a city. We'll see if it gives us 3 hands or 2. So
He's got his hands in his pockets.
That's smart.
okay, I'm going to give it something a little bit more challenge, where it's got to show the hands. So show me a close up of hands cutting celery on a cutting board, and we'll see how it comes up with. Those are pretty good.
That
Yeah,
looks
they are.
pretty
They're very good. Yeah.
They're pretty
Well,
good.
that first one on the left looks a little strange, but
This one, the one down the lower left here, or the first one, the upper left?
upper left, yeah.
Looks
His
a little.
right hand looks a little
You
strange
can
there to
see his
me.
wrist is, yeah.
Well, that's what we call the claw, which is what
Where's the thumb?
Yeah, the upper left is the upper left of the upper left is the one
Well,
I'm looking
that's
at.
what I'm saying is the one in the upper left is more of a professional chef that
Where they tuck
curls
the
his
thumb under here.
fingers. It's called the claw, and he tucks his thumb in so you won't cut yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that one's probably more legitimate than the others, actually.
Right.
But it's a professional, which we don't see very often.
And that's the kind of knife a professional uses as well.
Well, one of them, yeah.
Let's say a close up of a woman washing her hands in a sink. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
Those are pretty good.
Very good, yeah.
The chrome, the realism on the chrome image
Yeah.
here, it's pretty
Yeah.
good. This one's pretty good.
Yeah,
They're all pretty good. I think they're
Yeah.
better
very
results.
nice. Very nice. Yeah.
So let's see if you can see it, and you can get different variations of it if you want to as well. So, you know, for graphic designers that are having to create photos quickly, it's an amazing tool to be able to do these things more rapidly.
It'd be interesting if you put that old woman washing hands and see if it's suddenly the texture in the hands changes.
Well, let's just do that and see, okay? Because that's the great thing about generative AI is that you can ask it, you don't have to wait for an artist to go back and do
Yeah,
things.
there's old hands.
It knows how to age the hands, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Now that
interesting.
one on the upper right looks a little strange, I think.
It does look odd,
that's-
yes. I'm not sure how it got those veins, why it did it that way.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
take a look at your hands.
Right, yeah. That unfortunately that's true. Yes. Okay. But you know, we could modify now if we wanted to say, let's say I'm going to change this from a woman washing hands in a sink in an old country sink, okay, and see what happens. Because I got a fairly modern chrome porcelain sink. I want it to be an old country sink here. So there we got a little different, you know, faucets, different styles here like this, and say
Yeah.
we can say it a chrome mechanical woman. Okay, I'm just, you know, the problem is you could spend all day doing this, just, you know, playing around with different toys and trying to do things. So it didn't really give me a chrome mechanical woman, did it? It gave me a chrome sink, but not really the hands, washing hands in an old country sink. So a little bit different than what I might have wanted. So like everything else, coming up with the prompts is great, but you can see how they'll show you the prompts in their gallery here.
That's really makes a difference.
It does, doesn't it?
Place to start.
Exactly. It gives you a place to start, you know, so at whatever you'd like. So it says, well, gee, what do I make up? So if you find something that you like and you're interested in it, and the more you learn about the prompting and how you want it to create things, the better the quality of what.
And as you mentioned earlier, when you make one of these, it asks you if you want to put it in their into their gallery.
Right. So this is some of these are pretty photorealistic. You know, I mean, it's a toy photographer, but some of them are very photorealistic in terms of the image they come up with and what they can create for you. Something that you know, I don't know how many people have seen Firefly, you know, and taken advantage of it. Adobe's out there big time with AI. You know, it's just that a lot of times people assume that they aren't actively, you know, making progress in it, but they are doing a lot of things that are really great with it.
on the gallery, Bob. Is it possible to look for a particular type of thing? In other words, if you want to see mountains, can you tell it that you want to see the mountains in the gallery that might exist in the gallery photos or something like that? Is there some way of searching those galleries?
I don't know if the gallery is searchable at this point yet. They do have what is called a Discord group for Adobe Firefly, and that's probably searchable. If you're not familiar with Discord, it's a community site that gives you the ability to connect with other people, and so there's probably things that are there. So this is to more of discovery as opposed to a library. Now, obviously, you know, the stuff may end up in Adobe's stock photo library. They have a stock photo service that they sell on subscription. So they might make it available for people to upload their prompts and make them available for others to use in some way too. I just have been exploring it a little bit and trying to get an idea of what it's capable of doing. I use Adobe stock photos. Sometimes I also use Canva. Canva is a much simpler tool to use, but the capability that Adobe is incorporating into Firefly is also making it a lot easier to use their applications and making them simpler to use too. So explain what Adobe's just got a lot of tools that are out there that are going to be available with the result of Firefly and tools. So Firefly is free right now. So trying it using these prompts, and they are obviously selling Firefly.
There's the premium.
Right, 25 monthly generative credits. Premium 100 with Adobe fonts and no watermarks. Obviously, the free will have watermarks, and that'll be on your images. Where this
$5 a month
not bad if you really are a graphic designer or graphic
for
artist.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
I wonder if it's good. Well, it's obviously a subscription service, and it may always be on the web. Maybe it'll never go to a piece of software.
Firefly may end up that way, Fred. I know when I've used Photoshop and I've used some of the AI tools in Photoshop to do things like make a person's face thinner or other things like that. That's done on the web side of the application.
I see. Even now it's done that way.
Yeah.
That's all the more reason to think it's all going to go to the web.
Well, this takes a lot of computing capability. And
Well, that's what we're getting these days. We're getting lots and lots of computing capability. That's why they're able to do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a philosophical question, but you got to take me serious once, all you guys in your life, just once. This is serious. And it's a serious question. So I take Fred and I lock him up for 2 years, but I only give him paints and brushes and all the crayons that he wants and paper, everything he wants. And I take Joe and I lock him up for 2 years and I give him all the computer software he wants. So in 2 years, I let him out of the 2 rooms. What if I got? Who's better? No, I'm serious. Who's better? Who's a better artist?
Joe's better.
I don't know.
It all depends on Joe's ability to craft prompts that will create the things he wants to create. So if Joe is able to craft the prompts that he can create, his work will look significantly different than if he didn't know the prompts. Whereas Fred, if you have concepts and your skills with tools and the tools and craft of being an artist make sense, and you get better and better at your skills, you may be able to create things that are significantly better or different, than what Joe could do.
This is a little like the story. If you lock a monkey up in a room with paints, will he ever become Picasso?
Yeah.
Right.
Back in the early days, you'll appreciate this, Apple people, but back in the early days, I had the early Apple II, not 2C, not 2E, but the Apple II by itself. And they had a program. You got 2 programs with it. One was Star Trek, and the other one was 10,000 Monkeys. And 10,000 Monkeys, basically, it stated that you have this huge barn and it has 10,000 monkeys in it sitting at 10,000 typewriters, and they want to see what it'll come up with. And they said, let's watch one of the little fellas now. And you look over the shoulder and about 3 screens of random letters appear on your screen. And then it says, to be or not to be. That is and then it goes into crazy letters again. And it says, so close, so far, so close yet so far,
Yeah.
At any rate, but that was an Apple program in the early days, back in the 1980. That's when it was that
The other question you could ask, Carl, is would Fred have more fun creating his own art from scratch versus Joe working 8 hours a day on the computer?
That's a toss-up. I was a serious question. That was a serious question, and
What
Bob
would
did
happen
his-
is, okay, quantitatively, I would bury Fred.
Sure.
Qualitatively, Fred would bury me.
Yeah, I don't even know about that, since how I'm a amateur artist.
You're an
and
amateur
Alvin, are you
artist,
still
but you're
there,
an
Alvin?
artist. I'm not an artist. The things I would create would be created by somebody else. And every now and then I'd come out with something that was really good, but a lot of the stuff, I don't have the vision. There's a difference between vision and technical skill. I look at the images that people come out with in these challenges that they have every day in Night Cafe, and I look at mine. I come out with something, I say, oh, this is really good, and I post it in there, and then I look at the things that other people have done, and I'm going, how did they get that? That's so wonderful. I never think of this. I didn't think of that. I didn't think about the ripples in the pond. I didn't
So
think
that's the creative aspect of it.
exactly. So creatively, Fred would bury me.
How could Reg use this stuff in his mineralogy? No, I'm serious. How would Reg use this stuff for his field? Or Alvin, how would he use this stuff for flax or agriculture? That's a question.
Were you talking about just AI in general?
AI images, Fred.
Well, you could use it to create conceptual things, I would suspect. If you want to show layers of the earth or something like that, if you give it the right kind of prompt, you could get it to do a cross section or something. And as far as your agriculture is concerned, once again, you might be able to get it to do fields of things. You might be able to get it to do specific individual things. And then with the editing capabilities after the fact, there's something in Night Cafe called in painting, which I have not used at all. It's kind of an editing tool. You could probably use it, but you'd have to do some work to customize it for yourself. But there have been entire comic books that have been done with AI image to text or text to image.
Some of those images, AI images, have won art contests. So it's all in the eye of the beholder, as they say.
You betcha.
Well, I think the question, Carl, like you wanted to know if Alvin or could use something in their work, is that what would they want to have a picture or an image of? If you have to send a photographer out in the field to do something, it can get expensive. So if you really needed to replicate something like that, where you wanted to have somebody show, a variety of types of things that could be possible to do, that might be one way to possibly use it. But it's more a matter of, what do you need a picture for? Why would you want, what kinds of images would help you in doing your work and accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish?
One of the
Yeah, and
things that would be useful would be cutaways. Like, often people might say, well, how does the machine work? And if you had cutaways and you can say, well, it does this. And then once a crop comes in, it's going to go like this. Like, cutaways can take a lot of time for an artist to do. And if you started with the right cutaway, it probably could generate quite a few quite quickly.
Might be able to, yeah. It depends on, image generation is always going to be dependent on the ability of the image generation tool to pull from what it knows already. So if it's learned, say, what a combine looks like, and it understands what a combine structure is or something like that, it may not know much about what's inside of it, however, but it might be able, that's a matter of training, so that it can learn what to do. So if you give it enough 3D drawings or 2D drawings, it can create a 3D image out of it. That's possible to do already.
I think going back to the drawing thing, my hunch is graphic designers are usually doing things because somebody wants them to do it for them. There's a creative aspect, but somebody's saying, look, I need a picture of a bridge with a horse on the bridge, as opposed to artists that are starting on their own and they're painting what they want to paint in general. It's not about, I don't care what they think of it. This is what I want to do. So there's kind of a separation there.
On the premium as opposed to the free version. They say you get 25. Are the 25 separate prints, or does the editing of those prints count towards that 25? In other words, if you go back in, let's say you create a picture of a person washing hands, and then you say, I want to make those hands old hands. I want to make them men's hands as opposed to women's hands. Does each one of those count as a separate image, or is that one image and you're given free reign to edit that as much as you want?
I would suspect that each time you submit a prompt, but I'm not sure about this, but each time you submit a prompt, it's a generative credit.
That would be my guess too.
So in other words, if you take one picture and you edit it 5 times, you've used up 5 credits for the month.
Exactly.
I believe,
Yeah.
yeah, I would expect that to be the case, because each time you're submitting a prompt, you're asking the AI to generate essentially an entirely new image. Even though it knows something about it, it's still generating a new image for you based on.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Lexica at all, but that's another image thing. It gives you 100 a month, but it gives them to you 4 at a time. So basically you've got 25 a month that you can do. So
Yeah, and Canva, I mean, they've all got limits on
yeah.
how many tokens essentially you can use,
And
because
so the premium account was $5 a month, but was that 100 or what was the, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
remember.
that's 100, yeah.
If you tinkered with one image, you could easily shoot your 100 in creating one image.
Cost of a cup of coffee.
yeah, a cup of coffee every month. Well, it depends on how many images you generate. If it's really for production, you'd probably be using Photoshop or other tools. And if you're,
Where else can you have so much fun for $5 a month?
well, we've gone a little over. I just wanted to share a couple of AI tools. Every week, I'm going to have a little fun with tech and see if I can come up with something to do with AI every week.